We've had a full day now to fully digest this Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, Tim McManus article. So we're going to continue talking about it today a little bit more. We're going to talk about Jalen Hurts setting those training camp practice records. We're going to do that today for sure. And Phillies with a big win last night. Kyle Schwarber, not the biggest story in my opinion from last night. Trending the AM. Talking Phillies, Eagles, and anything else you want. And Martin Frank joins us at 8:30 from Delaware News Journal. Guys, we're live in 60 seconds, taking all your thoughts and opinions. And a very good morning, everybody, and welcome to Trending in the AM right here on Edge of Philly Sports. We're live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, you know the drill. Wherever you are watching, whichever platform you're watching on, make sure you do me that favor. You hit that like button, that share button, that subscribe button, that follow button. Whichever platform you're on, whatever it takes to do it, get this show out, get this show in front of as many people as possible as we continue on with the Jalen Hurts conversation, Nick Sirianni conversation from yesterday. We're going to continue that, and we're going to dive into preseason game one a little bit as Martin Frank from the Delaware News Journal joins us at 8:30. Don't want to miss that. He's been live from camp every single day, so he's going to give us a great perspective of this entire Eagles team and this Jalen Hurts situation. And, of course, on the agenda today as well, Philadelphia Phillies win a series last night, beat the Dodgers to take 2 out of 3. They're now 3-3 on this West Coast trip with 4 up against Diamondbacks coming up starting tonight. Kyle Schwarber with a big game, but not the biggest moment of the game. Schwarber having 3 home runs, big, huge, great. But Matt Strom sticking up for his players. That is also on the agenda today, and that is something that I just love. Guys, I'm your host, Phil Stiefel, always here. You can find me at Beard and Knowledge. There it is right there. That's how you find me on all social media platforms. So we're talking it all today. We've got it all on the agenda. Noom's jumping right in with a comment on the Phillies saying Schwarbs laid out his thuggish, ruggish bone on an LA table and just left it there like Harbaugh did to the NCAA. Yeah, I mean, I did not stay awake. Sorry, Noom. Anything I know about last night's Phillies game is box score reading and highlight watching. Sorry, West Coast trips during the week are very tough when you're up at 6:30 in the morning every day. So I did not watch much, if any, of the game last night. I think I put it on for a few minutes in the beginning of the game there. But the Phillies did win, which is huge. Kyle Schwarber, big game. Nick Castellanos got hit by a pitch, a pretty tight and inside and pretty bad pitch right there. What did Matt Strom do when he came in later? He made sure to go out there and drill the next batter for the Dodgers. Pretty blatant and obvious. And I've questioned and I've worried about this team and what this team needs to snap out of the funk. And a combination of the Kyle Schwarber 3 home runs and the way Matt Strom stuck up for his team, maybe that's what strikes this Phillies team out of their slump, out of their struggles. Maybe that's what does it. I don't know. We'll see. Good morning, Little G. Hope you are well. Obviously, I want to talk more about this Jalen Hurts, Tim McManus, Nick Sirianni piece in a lot of different angles and a lot of different topics and parts of it. There's a lot of people that love the article, a lot of people that love calling it into question with the relationship from Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, and everyone wants to make a big deal out of the part of it where Jalen Hurts, linked up with Wink Martindale in the playoffs to talk about how his Giants beat up on the Eagles and Jalen Hurts so easily. There's so many different layers of this that we still have not discussed. But I want to stick to the main one, the one that's most important to me, the one that still's irked my skin a lot. Sorry, I just heard my dogs barking like crazy up there. I didn't know what that was. The part of it that still irks me the most. And that's the simple fact of the timing. And it's a very detailed article. And it brings a lot of anonymous sources into play. And it does do an excellent job of gathering information and reporting on what may have been the problem in 2023. The season ended in January of 2024. It is now August of 2024. It is 7 months since the Eagles season ended. Nothing has changed in those 7 months outside of the Eagles team and organization moving on, finding new coordinators, readjusting whose roles of what in this team and in the coaching staff. So why didn't this article come out 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 5 months ago? When it could have, I don't know, not been a distraction. And I said it on this show yesterday, the distraction. Now you're going to have to answer questions. And now Jalen Hurts had to go on one of his dancing around a circle, not really saying anything, answers about looking forward to the future, about looking forward to this and that, and not paying attention. Spent a lot of time on that yesterday at his press conference, which we never get anything out of Jalen Hurts, except for cliches and a little this, a little that. Nothing important, nothing big ever comes out of his mouth. And I like that. I do, to an extent. Not as a content creator, as a fan. But it was an unnecessary distraction. And I've not caught or heard or seen one media member. Everybody's praising this article. Every media member is praising its accuracy and how good it is and how well done it is. And it may be a well done article. It may be. But I'm blinded by the timing of it. I'm blinded by the fact that Tim McManus sat on this article till literally the day Jalen Hurts breaks a training camp unimportant fake record. Drops it 2 days before the first preseason game when everybody is riding high. Where was this article in February when we were discussing who the head coach was going to be, whether Nick Sirianni should have been the head coach? Now, if I would have read this article during the coaching process, the coaching search or decision-making process, maybe I would have changed my opinion on Nick Sirianni a little bit. Maybe I would have been in the fire Nick Sirianni camp. But no, we waited till now. 4 weeks till the season is about to start to drop this information. And it still bothers me massively. And I've taken a lot of heat online for it. A lot of heat. Because most people like me, respect Tim McManus greatly. And don't want to think that he would put out a bad piece or bad timed piece. Everybody support him. A few people have taken my back, but not many. It just, to me, is an unnecessary, unwanted, it's just a distraction. And I want this team, I know this team could be so good in 2024. The only thing that could stop them is themselves and distractions. And that's what we got. What's up, Duck? How you doing this morning? Hope you are well. Jays Johnson, that article was mentioned to do what it did. That article was mentioned to do what it did. Cause a distraction? Is that what it was meant to do? It was to me, that article, what it was meant to do was draw clicks. But instead, everybody's praising. Now, it's crazy. This week's been a weird one for me. I had Joe Giglio on this show on Monday, and now I found a way to take the back of ESP in an argument with somebody, which I never thought I would do. I took the side of you, Douglas, and WIP's midday show in an argument this week, which I never thought I would do. And now I'm going against Tim McManus, something I never thought I would do. There have been a lot of firsts this week in 4 days for me. And it's kind of crazy. Can I pick your brain about pizza sometime? You can always pick my brain about pizza. You know where to find me on social media if it's a private question, but you can ask pizza questions as well. Good morning, Deebs. You'll be in tomorrow as we really get set for the preseason game, as we really get set to discuss how Nakobe Dean, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, has to ball out in the next 3 games or he might get cut. We're going to be talking about tomorrow. We're going to dive deeper into the linebacker. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. might be the 3rd best linebacker on this team right now. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it might be the case. When I was reading my practice recaps yesterday, and I go through all of them, I go through all the reporters that are there, their recaps and all, and they're live on the scene, like quick tweets and stuff. And there was a tweet from Brandon Lee Gouton about a Dallas Goedert touchdown, and just in it, he was describing it, and it said at the end, Nakobe Dean trailing once again. I don't think I've seen or read or heard one positive thing about a big play that Nakobe Dean. I mean, he's made a few tackles for losses, a few little quote unquote sacks, but more often than not, when we hear Nakobe Dean's name mentioned in reports from camp, they're not positive. And I teased it a little bit on Monday on Party on Broad. I've dabbled in it the last 2 days. Nakobe Dean, he's a 98% lock to make this team, but it's not 100%. And that is insane to think of at this point. Clickbait clout. And see, my problem, Jay, is that Tim McManus is not supposed to be that guy. Tim McManus is not supposed to be that clickbait clout guy. Tim McManus is the kind of guy that we sit there and we look to and we respect. And when he speaks, we take it as gold. And that's why I do think there is some truth to the article. I think the article could have been cut down into about 10% of it because, I mean, it kind of said the same thing over and over again. I think it tried to shine light on the Wink Martindale phone call that Jalen Hurts made, tried to make that look negative. I mean, yes, a starting quarterback that's about to go into the playoffs, calling the head coach or the defensive coordinator of the team that just beat him but got fired, so wasn't employed by the Giants anymore, calling him to find out how and why. Yes, I know you could take that and swing that in an area where he didn't trust his coaches to answer the questions that he had. Or you could take it the positive way and be like Jalen likes to use his cliche terms, I was just trying to pour more water into my cup. Now, you don't need to go cliche like that. You can just say, look, he got fired from his job. He whooped up on us. I wanted to know how and why. Just say it like that, and maybe it would have backed some people off. But when Tim McManus speaks, we're not supposed to doubt him. We haven't. He's been one of those truer, more honest reporters covering the Eagles for a long time. Everybody is that guy to an extent, but ESPN definitely. You notice Jeremy Fowler's name was on it too, maybe a little bit. I don't know. It's the nature of the business. Like it or hate it, it's a business, and clicks always win. And I get that. I do. But there's certain guys that don't fall victim to the clicks. And maybe I put Tim McManus too high on that list because maybe he does more than I realized with the clickbait stuff, but you don't see, some of the lead. You don't see everybody doing it. You see most of them. You don't see Martin Frank doing it. You don't see Chris Franklin doing it. You don't see Ed Kratz doing it. There's a way to be clickbaity, but also tell a good story. And your good stories need to be timed just right. And to me, still, to this moment, I really think I wouldn't have had an issue with this article. And I really think my whole offseason plans would have changed, not joining EOP, other offseason plans, would have changed if I would have read this article 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago. I doubt there's anything in this article that was new, in my opinion. And we're going to ask Martin Frank about this article. The article is way more damning on Nick Sirianni than it was hating on Jalen Hurts. Absolutely. I don't think it was. I absolutely agree that we're making it about Jalen Hurts, and it should be more about Nick Sirianni. But I also stand by it that if this article came out back then, the fan base may have put the pressure on the Eagles to move on from Nick Sirianni. But B, if this article was 110% correct, Nick Sirianni would have been fired. If Jalen Hurts, this article really makes it out to that Jalen Hurts and Brian Johnson both had a really serious problem with Nick Sirianni last year. Really did not see eye to eye. Really went against him. If it was as bad as that article laid it out to me, why is Nick Sirianni still the head coach here? Because if it was that bad, I don't care how Howie Roseman loves the yes man head coach that'll do what he says head coach. There's no way that if it was this bad, he would have kept them. Just wouldn't have happened. Like, you're not going to pay your quarterback $250 million or whatever and have him hate his head coach that deeply. You're just not. You're going to fire Nick Sirianni. You're going to bring in another yes man. And Bill Belichick's not a yes man. So I don't know where the Bill Belichick rumors are, probably from the Jeffrey Lurie Patriots way of doing business argument or conversation. But Howie Roseman wouldn't be a fan of Bill Belichick in here. Trust me on that. But he would do what he's told. There is no way this article is 110% accurate and Nick Sirianni keep. And I can't wait to get Martin Frank's opinion on it because he's there all the time. He sees this going all the time. He was in the little discussion. He was one of the people that was commenting or questioning Jalen Hurts on it. So we're going to get his firsthand accounts of it as I have been at camp, and Johnny Wilson will be the I tried to start a thread. It didn't really take off yesterday on Twitter, Jay, about guys that are on the hot seat not to make the roster or that are getting bumped down. Johnny Wilson. Paris Campbell is hurt and has been hurt for a week now. Doesn't seem like he's coming back anytime soon. Paris Campbell's on a cheap 1 year, like $3 or $4 million deal. Is Paris Campbell on the hot seat? If they're worried about losing Aeneas Smith, could Paris Campbell be the guy that gets cut? I doubt it. But Johnny Wilson is fighting for that number 3 spot. That's kind of cool to see. It's kind of cool to see a rookie not have much of a shot and it's a picture you should be showing, a story you should be telling rookies. Look, rookies can earn their spot, earn their way onto a team, earn their way into the rotation right from the get-go. Yeah, just give me the story. And honestly, I know you can't reveal your sources. You can't. But he named so many anonymous sources. Well, he didn't name them. He used the term anonymous source, multiple anonymous source, to anonymous so many times in the article. At some point, you got to prove some facts. You got to get somebody quoted on. You got to get somebody's name quoted. I know a player won't, but you got to find somebody. Otherwise, it's just anonymous sources. And who wanted Brian Johnson in the first place? Well, there were a lot of people last offseason that were thinking Brian Johnson was a head coach. And that article definitely painted Brian Johnson in a positive light where he was a lot less to blame than Nick Sirianni. There was a lot of little tidbits in it that made me think that Brian Johnson and Jalen Hurts were both on the same page and frustrated with Nick Sirianni. I honestly hate having a head coach. I don't hate it. I don't like it. I don't hate it. I kind of like the coach, big picture, the delegator. I kind of like it. You can focus on everything instead of just one thing. When you're calling the plays, I don't know. What's the job of an offense coordinator really if they're not calling the plays? The Belichick rumors were lazy. Look, there's always going, Anthony, to be Eagles, New England links. You know, it goes back to the story that Jeffrey Lurie tried to buy the Patriots, was just outbid by Robert Kraft. So he's always admired the Patriots' way of doing business. There's always going to be that link. That's why McDaniels almost was the head coach here before Nick Sirianni. I think we dodged a bullet there. I just use common sense when I see articles. And that's what I do. And my common sense tells me that if it was as bad as it said, Sirianni wouldn't be here. And if it was bad as it says, why didn't this article come out 5-6 months ago? That's all I'm told. That's all I think about it. Phil, I feel you're right about the Phillies being so streaky as Schwarber's on fire now, and we won. But sometimes he's not, and we lose. Yeah, look, the Phillies are a streaky team, Bruce. That's it. You just hope they're hot at the right time in the playoffs. And I know Schwarber's 3 home runs, I said at the opening intro of the show, huge momentum swing for the Phillies offense. And the Phillies offense is, they've had 24, 25 hits in the last 2 games, starting to break out of their funk a little bit. I get that. But the Matt Strom hitting of the Dodgers player, I forget who it was. That's a team building moment. I don't want people to get hurt. I don't want bench clearing brawls to happen. But that kind of moment kind of bring a team that's struggling together, and I love it. I hope most of our stars can get hot at one time come late September and into it's October. October's all we needed. Thompson being fired as a conversation we will have depending on how the season ends first after the season. But I said this season I was not going to criticize Rob Thompson, so I'm going to stick to it as long as I can. McManus went big time on us. Dress shoes and expensive ESPN suits. I'll believe him if he shows up for a tailgate. There you go. Yeah. Who did he work for before ESPN, mister? I forget. Was he an Inquirer guy? I forget where he had his main break before ESPN. It was kind of weird seeing all the Eagles media immediately come out positively. Yeah. And I said that. I made a tweet and I got crushed for the tweet. I actually thought that someone like Martin Frank or Chris Franklin would have told me something that I should stop that or whatever. Like, I expected at least one media member to be like, yo, great article, bad timing. But all the other media members, Deebs, you got to think of it this way. They all got deadlines. They all got articles to do. They all now have articles to write that are going to draw clicks with their opinions on and their thought process on the article. So all the media members loved it because it gave them more content to create. To an extent, I love it too because it's given me 2 shows worth of content. There's never a complete loss for what to talk about on this show because the media and the teams in the city always give me something. They really do. So maybe that's why, but I would have liked to have seen at least one person. Now, I will say, like I said, I stuck up for the WIP midday show yesterday because Hugh Douglas on that show came out and said the same thing that I'm saying. The timing is awful for it, unnecessary for it. Where was this story 5 months ago? And he is the only major named person with a bigger platform than me that has called this out for the timing of the article. Seems weird to me. And I know there's a little fraternity, but, we'll get to that in a second, Joe. Sorry. I know there's a little fraternity of writers or whatnot. But also, like, they're all competing with each other, and there's cliques in there. I would have thought some of the cliques would have come out against it. But, again, I think people are in shock that Tim McManus could even put out an article that is fishy like this. What's up, Joe? How you doing this morning? It's August 8th, and our Phillies have the best record in baseball. Damn straight they do, Joe. Damn straight they do. Seems like they're finally breaking out of their slump. Still need to work on with starting pitching. Phillips, still not sure if Phillips can go. You still got whatever, Alvord or whatever his name is going tonight. Ranger Suarez still hurt. Taijuan Walker still rehabbing. Still need to figure out the starting pitching a little bit, Joe. But we're starting to turn a corner maybe. Brian Johnson may have been more of the CEO candidate that happened to be a Hurts whisperer. Yeah, maybe. Brian Johnson will be a head coach in the NFL before long. I don't even remember where he went. Where did he go? Lions or he went I forget where he went. Anyway, because of his work in 22 with Jalen Hurts, he will get a head coaching opportunity. He'll get another offensive coordinator opportunity. He'll get something. But again, they loved Brian Johnson here. If this article was accurate and came out before, Nick Sirianni wouldn't be here, and Brian Johnson would have interviewed for the head coaching role here. And who knows where we would be right now if that was the case. Brian Johnson, the Commies passing game coordinator. Yeah, I know he was somewhere. And actually, that's a good place. They got a young rookie quarterback. He can help get his voice in there. I hate to admit it, but I really like Dykstra as he was always productive and chasing runs too. We need players like that now, I feel. Look, you're talking about different eras. The Dykstra style just obviously doesn't work anymore. His personality just probably somebody like Denny Dykstra in today's social media era would have been hated in Philly probably. And Chase and Rollins, we got really good players on our team too. We got productive, great personalities on the Phillies. Um, every era of Phillies team has a Rollins, has a Dykstra, has a Schmidt. Every era does. We're going to talk about this tomorrow, Al. I don't want to get his answer. Deebs is going to be on the show the whole day tomorrow with me. We will get a good 20-minute Goodfellas discussion with him tomorrow for sure. It was maybe the biggest non-story ever. We already knew most of what was reported. Friday night can't. Right, but see, here's the thing, and the biggest non-story, 100%, agreed. But the time, but hold on, we're going to come back to all these comments in a little bit here. Martin Frank just peeped into the bottom of my screen here. So joining us online, my man Martin Frank who's been doing a great job. It was all training camp long. Good morning, Martin. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How about you guys?
We're doing fantastic. There never goes a day in Philadelphia sports where something doesn't come up that creates a new story to talk about. Like I was just saying a few minutes on this show, like the script for the show just writes itself. 5 days a week, 90 minutes a day. Like there's always something to talk about. And the Tim Jalen Hurts story has just created another element to talk about this week.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, been talking about this before. Like, there's some NFL cities, whatever, teams 4-12, nobody care, or 4-13 now. Nobody cares, when's the off season. But like, even if the Eagles are like 4-13, it's like always a soap opera. There's always something going on. It's fascinating, actually. Always something to write about, always something to talk about. As I'm sure you're well aware these last few days with the whole Jalen Hurts stuff. So yeah, it's fascinating.
So I obviously wanted to bring you on to get some thoughts on some players and the obvious preseason game upcoming. But I obviously have to ask about this Jalen Hurts article and stuff. And it was a very in-depth article. And it was a lot of things that we all kind of thought, knew, kind of already had the understanding that these problems already existed last year. The big problem that I had with the article, and something that I've taken a lot of flack on social media for expressing this let me preface this by saying I'm a huge Tim McManus supporter fan, always respected his opinions and coverage of the Eagles. I thought the timing of the article being released at this point in training camp, with everything going so positively, all the vibes going high, everybody saying and doing the right thing, Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni seem to be on the same page. I thought the timing of the article was a little off. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have two thoughts on that. Number one, it's probably like whatever happened last year, the collapse, so to speak, the dysfunction between Hurts and Sirianni. I mean, that's going to be a topic until the Eagles prove that it's not a topic.
Okay.
And the only way you can do that is when you actually play some games and, you get off to a really good start and, things seem to be working under Kellen Moore. And so far, we've seen that kind of in the preseason. Jalen Hurts has had a great training camp so far. That can't be denied. He seems to be, playing at a different level than he was last year. I mean, that's all true. As for the timing of the article, I think the reason why Tim wrote it stems from what Jalen Hurts said in June. It was actually a question that I had asked him about Nick Sirianni, like, just basically say something nice about the way he has sacrificed, control of the offense to Kellen Moore and what that says about him. And he kind of gave a weird answer, like, that's a great question. I don't really know what to tell you.
That was your question?
Yeah, that was.
I missed the COVID days where you guys were all on screens and it said who was talking in the press conferences. I need to know who's talking. I didn't know that was your question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It was and it was pretty much an innocuous one. I'll tell you the truth. Like I was, leading into training camp, I was going to write a feature story about Nick Sirianni giving up control of the offense, and I was just trying to get a quote from Jalen Hurts about it. And then he said what he said, and that and that was like the last day of spring practice. So you had 6 weeks before you could talk to him again. And then it became like a huge story because everyone's got 6 weeks to dissect what Jalen Hurts meant or didn't mean by what he said and how he, and I think that kind of got the ball rolling with, Tim's story that came out the other day. It's still, I understand what a lot of people are saying as far as the timeliness of it. It's 7 months after the season ended, but they haven't played a game since then. They've changed up their whole offense, with the new coordinator and everything. They brought in a lot of new players. They brought in a lot of new coaches. All of that is an offshoot of what happened last year and how they're trying to move on from that. So until they show that they've actually moved on, I mean, I can see why, it's still kind of a story and still kind of relevant in that regard.
Do you think that, again, and I'm trying to say this in the nicest of ways, this question, that if the article painted a pretty bleak picture between the relationship of Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, and we knew it wasn't good, but I almost felt like it was bleaker after reading the article than I even realized. And is there any theory to the fact that if it was as bad as the article made me feel it was, that Nick Sirianni probably shouldn't have been here to begin with this year? So maybe it was bad, but maybe not as bad as the article made me feel it was.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. If you remember after the season ended, like Sirianni was basically twisting in the wind for like a week until they finally held that press conference with Howie and Nick, obviously saying that, Nick is still going to be the coach. But like, look what happened during the course of that week. I mean, Nick had to give up control of the offense. He had to hire a new coordinator who was totally different from, his own philosophy and Kellen Moore. And now he's like a CEO coach and everything. So I think, and I think we've talked about this before also, is, I think Nick knew that if he was going to keep his job, he had to do certain things. And it was kind of like, if you go back to Doug Peterson's last year, after the season ended, he wanted to keep Press Taylor as his offensive coordinator. Jeffrey Lurie wanted, a different voice and everything like that, different assistant coaches. So, they fired Doug. And I think Nick did the opposite. Like, he's like, okay, if I'm going to keep my job, this is what I have to do. And I think that's why he's still the coach. I mean,
do you think it was like Nick Sirianni went to Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie was like, look, it went bad. This is what I could do to change it, whatever. Or do you think that they went to Jalen Hurts first and went, Jalen, if Nick Sirianni changes, can you stay on the same page? Do you think one, both, maybe all of it kind of all played out over that? Because to me, Jalen Hurts is the $250 million franchise quarterback. If he says, no, I don't want Nick Sirianni here, you got to think Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie would have said, all right, sorry, Nick, you got to go.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The quarterback definitely, who's making $250 million, the franchise quarterback definitely has a say in that. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of all that you said. Obviously if Jalen wanted Nick out, it could have happened. But you see that in any sport. I mean, Bryce Harper, for example, if he doesn't like Rob Thompson and says, I want Rob Thompson out of here, then, maybe they do that. Obviously that's not, let me just throw that out there right now. That's not the case.
Is that one of your sources? Do you have a rumor that's are you breaking news here on the show?
Yeah, exactly. But, maybe that happened with Joe Girardi. I mean, I don't know. But I'm sure John Middleton would like to have Bryce Harper's input. I mean, he's the face of the franchise, just like I'm sure Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, they asked for Jalen Hurts' input. And, maybe this was kind of like how it all transpired. The fact that, would it work if Nick did this, this, and this? And, they all came to agreement saying, yes, it would. And so far it has. So, yeah, I think there's a little bit of all that in what you said.
Okay. So let's get to camp. Let's get to the first preseason game. Obviously, they haven't made an announcement on who's playing and who's not playing. There's going to be some bad weather passing through Philly today and tomorrow. So you're obviously not going to see the stars, the Jalen Hurts, the AJ Browns. But I was a guest on another show on Monday, and they were asking me about this similar kind of question. I'm like, the question is, how many of these positional players are actually 100% locked in as starters so that, like, is Becton or Steen, if they were locked in, they might not play, but they're not locked in. There's a lot of positions still sort of up for grabs in this starting lineup. How many people do you expect to see play, or maybe it's easier to answer, who do you expect not to see play outside of Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and those elite guys?
Yeah, I think you are going to see both Becton and Steen. I think like a lot of the positions that are up in the air, to some extent, you'll see players. I'm not sure if you'll see Devin White, but you probably will see Zach Bond and
Really?
Nakobe Dean, and behind those guys, Trotter and Van Sumer and those guys at linebacker. I think at cornerback, you're probably going to see everyone except Darius Slay. I would be surprised if Slay played, but there's a battle going on there with Isaiah Rodgers and Keely Ringo, and Quinyon Mitchell's been playing a lot in the slot during training camp. Vontae Maddox has been working at safety. Bradbury's been working at safety. CJ Gardner Johnson is probably not going to play because he's been injured, so he hasn't practiced. So, there are going to be a lot of name guys who are going to play. As far as the defensive line, you might see Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis for like maybe a series. I don't know for a fact. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just assuming, just because, they probably want to get a little bit of work in, but you're also see like a lot of guys. I can see Bryce Huff playing just because he hasn't done a whole lot in training camp, and they want to see how he does against the run. The offensive line, Lane Johnson, probably not. Mailata, probably not. But, there are a lot of guys they want to look at behind them. Cam Jurgens, I think, will play because, he's taken over for Kelsey. He hasn't had a ton of experience at center. Let's see, where else? Running back, probably no on Saquon Barkley, but yes on all the other guys. Receiver, probably not A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, but there are a lot of guys there that they want to look at. Johnny Wilson, Anais Smith, Paris Campbell probably not going to play because he's been injured. John Ross would be someone they'd want to play. He hasn't done a whole lot so far. Britton Covey, obviously, will get a lot of playing time. Joseph Nagata. I think you'll see a lot of name players, just not the top players. Those are the guys you need to keep healthy for the regular season, and especially if it's going to be rainy and wet and all that. I can't see them playing tomorrow.
You mentioned a lot of different names. I want to get your specific opinion on, but you just mentioned Johnny Wilson's name, and Deebs had asked a few minutes ago here your take on him. There's a lot of people over the last 2 or 3 days that now feel that Johnny Wilson might be inching his way towards that wide receiver 3 spot and having a real role on this team, especially with Paris Campbell having been injured for almost the last week now and probably not back anytime soon. Is Johnny Wilson for real? Is he really legitly a threat to be a 3 or a significant contributor as a backup on this offense?
Yeah, I think they like him, especially like in red zone situations. If you're inside the 20, you can throw a fade into the corner of the end zone. He can go up over a 5'11", 6'1" cornerback and get that ball. He's 6'6". He runs like a wide receiver. I think that's what makes him really intriguing to the Eagles. As far as like the number 3 wide receiver position, I think like a lot of people are making that a bigger deal than it is. If A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are healthy and Dallas Goedert's healthy, those guys are getting 80% probably of the targets, no matter what. And actually throw Barkley in there too. So those 4 guys are getting like 80%. So you need like a third wide receiver, somebody who could spread the field. That could be either Paris Campbell or John Ross, whoever sticks, or Anais Smith. He's got a ways to go because he hasn't been very good so far. So, it's kind of like the Quez Watkins role. I know everybody can't stand Quez Watkins and are glad that he left, but he did serve a purpose. Like, he stretched the field and he opened things up for Goddard and Brown and Devontae Smith. And I think that's what they want with a third wide receiver, but I think it's going to be in multiple ways. So, you have the speed factor that one of those, like either Campbell, John Ross, or Anais Smith can provide, but also you also need a guy who can go up and get those 50-50 balls. You could throw it up to, you got third and long and you need, first down, you throw it up in the middle of the field, and a guy like Johnny Wilson can come down and catch that. So, I think they could do the third wide receiver in multiple ways. I think Wilson will definitely have a role in that, and I think one of the other guys will have a role in that too. And another guy to keep an eye on is Britton Covey. He's had a really good camp. He's shown ability to get open over in the middle and stuff. He's not going to stretch the field like, one of the speed guys does, but, maybe he's, some guy who can come up with a clutch catch on third down, something like that. So I think you're going to see that in a number of different ways this year.
Who are the odd men out? I mean, normally they keep about 5 wide receivers. Last year they only kept 4 right out of camp because Covey started on the practice squad. Right now, I kind of feel like that Smith and Ross are the 2 odd men out right now. I know it'd be hard to imagine him cutting Howie, a 5th-round wide receiver, but he hasn't done anything. Like, I kind of feel like these preseason games are really, really, really important for Smith to even make the roster, let alone, have a role on this team.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, these preseason games are bigger for some players than others, and they're definitely huge for Anais Smith. I think that last spot could come down to either Smith or John Ross. I guess if Paris Campbell doesn't come back relatively soon, he could be in that mix too of players who might not make the squad. But I mean, Anais Smith needs to show something because, he was coming off. He had a stress fracture last season. He just got cleared for training camp, so he didn't really do much he didn't do anything in the spring, and it's kind of been a slow ramp up for him. And he needs to, this is when you got to show it. I mean, and if he doesn't, I mean, the Eagles obviously taking a risk. You try to get him to the practice squad, another team can claim him, but if he doesn't show anything in the preseason games, maybe another team won't want to put in a claim, and therefore they can get him to the practice squad. So
I love that battle that probably goes in Howie Roseman's head during cut down days. Well, can I get this player through practice squad or not? Like, I could just sit there imagining him sitting there trying to dissect these players and like, I want them, but I don't want them. You know what I mean? Like, and Howie figures that out. I want to spend a lot of time on some defensive players here with you, but I've got a couple questions on the same name here popping up. So really quickly, there have been a lot of positive reports about Graham Calcaterra from camp and being the number 2 tight end now on this team. As he's had, obviously, from all reports, a good camp, but his weakness was blocking, and the Eagles have always used their second tight end in that blocking role. Multiple people have asked, has Calcaterra's blocking got any better throughout camp this year?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of hard to tell because they're only in pads. Like, they've only been in pads, I think, 4 times so far. And I don't really see the other tight ends as being like great blockers. I know Calcaterra has gotten better over the past couple of years as far as blocking, but I mean, is he going to be a Jack Stahl? Probably not. Mm-hmm. And Goddard himself is a good blocker for a tight end. So, I mean, I don't think, again, like, I would put the second tight end in the same category as the third wide receiver. It's, you're not going to get a ton of targets. If it's short yardage situation, you could see a role for someone like Calcaterra, and he does have to be a better blocker than he has been. So, I mean, we'll find out in the preseason games, because that's when you're going against an opponent, and we'll see how he does. He's going to play a lot. I can't really see Goddard playing much. So, one of those guys is going to have to emerge as a blocker. But Calcaterra has been great as a receiver. Yesterday alone, he had like 3 really good catches during the team drills and everything. He's really been impressive so far.
All right, let's move on to the defense here. We're talking to Martin Frank from DelawareOnline.com, who's been there every practice so far. You mentioned a couple names on the defense, and the linebackers. You said that you think that Zach Bond will play on Friday night. To me, he was the first name when I was mentioning names yesterday on the show that I don't think will play. So I think out of all the competitions in camp, I kind of feel like he's locked up that role more than any other competition so far. Have you been impressed with how Zach Bond has transitioned over from an outside guy to an inside guy pretty much flawlessly so far from all the reports I've read?
Yeah, he's done a good job. But again, you want to see how he is against, an opponent. Like we haven't seen that yet. I mean, it's one thing going against the Eagles offense, and you're not really hitting. It's another thing when, it's the Ravens offense and, they're throwing to the receiver and, can he cover, can he stick with the receiver or not? That's going to be kind of the question. I mean, one thing about Nakobe Dean is, when he was at Georgia, he was a good cover linebacker. He was a little bit undersized, but he could stay with the receiver. Bond is bigger. He's like 6'3", 240. And so far he's shown the quickness to stay with the receiver, but, can he do that in a game? And I think that's why he's going to play as opposed to someone like Devin White, who, has kind of proven it over the years. He can play inside linebacker. That's always been his position. For Zach Bond, it's a relatively new position. I mean, he's mostly been an edge rusher when he was with the Saints. I mean, he did play a little bit on, inside backer, but I think he might play just because they want to see how he does against an opponent.
Okay. You mentioned Nakobe Dean's name, and funny, Nakobe Dean, I made a comment at the very beginning of camp that this could be his last training camp in Philadelphia because this was such a pivotal year for him at third year in the league. He really hasn't either stayed healthy or been able to get on the field for one reason or another. Now, as camp's going on and on, there's a lot of questionable reports of how he's performing this year. And it's 98.971% not going to happen. But it's kind of crazy. I made a joke the other day, and people actually started taking to it. It's not 100% locked that he even makes the team this year. I mean, he probably will. But, he's actually fighting for something. What seems to be the problem with Nakobe Dean? Is it just literally his size? Is he not grasping the Vic Fangio style of coaching? I had so much hype for Nakobe Dean coming out of Georgia. Like, he was one of my favorite players in that draft, defensively speaking. And I'm just shocked at how he's not taking that next step in his NFL career.
Yeah, we've kind of seen like both good and bad from Nakobe so far in training camp. Even Vic Fangio, I think, admitted that like the open practice at the link was not one of Nakobe's better days. Like, he was kind of trailing a couple guys in pass coverage and, but then like, I think it was not yesterday, the day before, maybe he got one of those pseudo sacks, he busted up. He like busted like Will Shipley into Kenny Pickett and everything. So, he's done some good things. I think he's having a little bit of problem. I think he's having, he's trying to grasp Vic Fangio's defense. It's kind of different for what he's been doing the last couple of years. And, he just got cleared the final week of spring practice from, the foot surgery and everything. So I think it's a combination of all of that. Like he's still kind of ramping up. But yeah, I mean, he needs to show something. If he's like Vic Fangio really likes Zach Bond and Devin White's going to be one of the starters. I mean, he's pretty much a lock. So, Nakobe's got to show something, and these preseason games are going to be huge for him to do that because, right now Vic Fangio likes Zach Bond, and Zach Bond seems to be doing the job, and if he can show that,
and of course Jeremiah Trotter Jr. as well. And I forget which reporter put it out there. Somebody from camp that was reporting from camp yesterday put it out there that maybe there's a chance that Trotter Jr. is actually ahead of Nakobe Dean at this point, and that kind of got me thinking a little bit. It was just one person's opinion, but that's why this camp, these preseason games are so important for Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, I don't know if I would go that far. I mean, there was one practice a couple days ago where Trotter got some first team reps, and he looked pretty good. But yeah, I wouldn't go that far as to say he's ahead of Nakobe Dean right now. I mean, I think he's still kind of developing and everything. But yeah, I mean, it's preseason games are big for him too. Obviously, he's going to get probably a lot of the second half, and if he has, he can show something, then maybe that happens. But I don't see it just yet.
All right, the final position group that we got to cover here is obviously, I don't call it the cornerbacks and the safeties. It's just the secondary. It's just the defensive back room. because outside of a couple players, Darius Slay, Reed Blankenship, everybody's kind of playing everywhere in the slot, at safety, outside. You've got Ringo, you've got Rogers, you've got everybody with Darius Slay, you've got Quinion Mitchell in the slot. Everybody's everywhere. Who is impressing you most with this playing everywhere style philosophy to earn playing time on this team?
I would start with Quinion. I mean, he's played a lot in the slot and he's been really good. They like him a lot. And if you go with the philosophy of getting your 5 best defensive backs on the field, he's definitely one of them. So,
Okay.
and what I mean by that is, yeah, he was drafted as an outside corner, but I don't think right now. I mean, obviously you got Slay, and I don't know if he's in the pecking order behind Isaiah Rodgers as much because Isaiah Rodgers has been really good, but he's definitely one of their five top defensive backs. So I can see him playing in the slot, especially to start the season.
Mm-hmm.
And he's shown an ability, like it's a position he's never really played before. Like at Toledo, he was pretty much exclusively on the outside. So I've been impressed with what I've seen there. Isaiah Rodgers and Keely Ringo have had a pretty good battle going on. I would put Isaiah Rodgers in the lead right now, but he's been good. I mean, Keely Ringo showed kind of last year that he could do it, and he's only getting better. Slay still Slay, obviously. The safety situation is kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, Blankenship and CJ Gardner-Johnson are the starters, but you do need a third safety and dime packages, and Bradbury hasn't been that bad. I mean, I know people.
I wrote his name down to make sure. I made sure there was only one note for this interview. Is I wrote down James Bradbury's name. That's it.
I've noticed him, like he's had like 2 or 3 pass breakups in practice. I mean, he's a smart guy. Like he's very cerebral. He knows how to play the position, even though he's just learning it for the first time. Like you can see him starting to pick it up, and he's going to play a lot because obviously Gardner Johnson isn't. But hey, at the very least, he can make himself attractive in a trade situation. So
the whole philosophy on Bradbury for me and Avonte Maddox and everybody they've been rotating at safety is that everybody wants to constantly talk about Justin Simmons and everybody's upset he was working out with the Saints. And I didn't see if the Saints signed him or not yesterday. I don't think anybody announced anything after yesterday. But if if they were not at least semi-confident in what they had, that Justin Simmons would already be here. There are some rumors starting to float around yesterday that maybe Justin Simmons and Vic Fangio don't necessarily see eye to eye 100%. But that notwithstanding, he would obviously technically be an upgrade over Bradbury and Maddox and whoever else out there. But they're not bringing him in. So that tells me that they've got a plan in place because at this point, you're already in the first preseason game. He should be here already if he was going to be in their plans.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, we also haven't talked about Sidney Brown, who's still rehabbing from his torn ACL. Cooper DeJean, who has not practiced yet. He's got the hamstring injury and everything. I mean, they got high hopes for him. And he's a guy who can play pretty much anywhere on the defense, whether it's outside, nickel, or safety. So, I mean, I think when it comes down to it, like they see nickel and safety as similar in a lot of ways. So like if you can do one, chances are maybe, you can do another. That's why we've seen Avonte Maddox a lot, with the twos at safety, as opposed to like, the nickel spot, which is where Quinion has been playing mostly. Cooper DeJean could be a great nickel cornerback in this league. He could also play safety. So, I think they have the depth where they don't need to like go and get someone like Simmons, but it's just a question of how it all shakes itself out. But I think they feel pretty good about what they have in the secondary.
Any thoughts on DeJean and Sidney Brown's injury? When we obviously Sidney Brown's a lot further away to coming back, but any estimations in your part when we might see those guys actually on the field?
Well, when DeJean suffered the injury, like before training camp, they estimated 3 weeks, and I
Hmm.
think that would be next week, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. And we've kind of seen him off to the side, like starting to do more sprinting and stuff like that, working with trainers and stuff. So, will he be back in time for the last? I don't think he'll play in any. I mean, this is just me talking. I don't. I mean, he definitely won't play next week. Even if he's back like on Monday or Sunday to practice, like I think they would hold him out and maybe the final preseason game. But chances are it might not even be that. So he's going to have to like ramp up pretty quickly, like over those last 2 or 3 weeks before the season starts. So, I don't see him having a big role early in the season. I think it's something that gradually increases as the season goes along. And I think Sidney Brown, I kind of get the sense they want to play it safe with him. Like I
Okay.
think I can see him starting the season on the pup list, which means he would have to sit out, the first 4 games. But I think like he'll definitely be back at some point, like within the first month or so of the season, and I think he'll be a pretty big contributor. So, if they could kind of like hold down the fort, I mean, maybe that means that Bradbury stays. Maybe they don't trade him, maybe they don't cut him, maybe he has depth, and then see how it goes from there.
Hey, I'm just praying, Brad. Like I hate being right sometimes, but sometimes I love being right. And I just made a random comment at the start of free agency that James Bradbury was making this team. Just so I just want to be right one time. I just want
Yeah,
to be right one time. So that's why I'm cheering for James Bradbury, just to say I was right one time. That's it.
yeah. Well, I mean, I give Bradbury a lot of credit
Sure.
because after last season, everybody kind of knew he wasn't coming back,
Yeah.
and he could have just packed up his things and gone, not reported to spring practices, not reported to training camp, and made it really easy. He could have made it really easy for the Eagles to cut him, and then maybe he can latch on with another team and everything, get a new start. But he's worked hard. He's learned a new position. He even said it was his idea, like, hey, Howie, I had a really bad year. What if I tried playing safety? What do you think of that? And they said, all right, sure.
I love it.
And,
So
at the
Martin
very,
Frank, DelawareOnline.com, NFL. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I was saying, at the very least, like he at least has kind of made himself, somewhat, I wouldn't say attractive in a trade, but someone who like another team might want to
Yep.
trade for
Or
if
another team might just want to keep on their roster.
yeah, yeah, he's a good guy
I
to have
love it.
around.
What's the life of a beat reporter like in training camp? You're going every single day, just like the players, and you finally get a day off like this. Like, it's not even probably a day off. You still probably got articles to write. You still probably got work to do. You're still getting ready for preseason. But today's got to be a nice light day for you, right?
It's a lighter day.
Lighter. Okay.
I'm not watching practice and everything. I mean, the great thing about training camp is that the entire practices are open to the media. So
Mhm.
we could see stuff that we never get to see once they close it down. Like I would say the last week of August, then it goes into regular season mode. We're only allowed to watch the warm ups and, maybe some individual drills. So this is like our favorite time of the year because we get to see an entire practice, like what they're working on, like, what who's with the ones, who's with the twos and stuff. Like we never get any of that from
Right.
like late August all the way until May, basically. So I kind of like really enjoy this time of year.
So you don't even want the day off today.
Well, I don't have the day off. I mean, I gotta write stuff for for previewing tomorrow's game, and some other stuff that I'm working on. So I mean, it's relaxing in the sense that I don't have to, wake up at like 6 in the morning, go down to NovaCare Complex, do all the interviews and stuff like that. So it probably saves a good 2 or 3 hours off my day
Yeah.
today. But yeah, it's not really a day off.
No,
So
no, no days off for an Eagles beat reporter, basically. Then.
maybe February.
Yeah. Hopefully, it doesn't come till after February, right? That's
Yeah,
that's the hope and goal, right?
late February.
Late February, your next day off. Guys, Martin Frank, DelawareOnline.com, M Frank NFL on Twitter. I love it. I love in this day and age with social media. One of the best parts of social media is following guys like you and some of the others and all the camp videos and instant reactions on Twitter. You guys do a great job. You are, like I say, this is not just to praise you for coming on my show, but I love the work you guys do down there, keeping us fans informed of every single thing that's happening. So
Yeah, thank you. It's fun. I mean, that's kind of like the best part of the job is like, seeing that kind of stuff that, and then, sharing it with the fans and everything, kind of letting them know what's going on with the team. So, yeah, it's the good part of the job, definitely.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning, Martin. Keep up the good work. Let's. I can't wait to see what we see this Friday. In the first preseason game, and see who
Yeah.
shines and who does not.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to it as well. And thanks always for having me. I enjoy doing your show, Phil. So
I
keep
appreciate
up
it.
the good work yourself.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, guys. Guys, make sure you follow this guy, Martin Frank, M Frank NFL on social media, guys. Martin, have a good one, and go Birds for tomorrow.
All right. See you.
See you. All right, guys, that was Martin Frank there. Real quick, before we get back, there's a lot of comments I got to tackle there, but we got to pay some bills first and foremost, obviously. SherryTickets.com. Family owned and operated since 1946. SherryTickets.com is easy to use, has no hidden fees, and has the best prices available for your tickets to sporting events, concerts, theater, you name it, they got it. The price you see is the price you pay. And then at checkout, if you use promo code EOP10, you get an additional 10% off. Again, SherryTickets.com. Why overpay with the rest? Save with the best right here. Promo code EOP10. And of course, our great friends over at PhillySportsTrips.com. Unfortunately, their package to Brazil to see the Eagles week 1 against the Green Bay Packers is sold out. But they are the premier travel and tailgate experience company to support your favorite teams in Philadelphia. They've got some great things happening. Excuse me. Sorry. You can take a deposit. They're already taking deposits for spring training for the Phillies next year, but all their great Eagles takeover trips down to Tampa in September. We can go up to the Meadowlands, MetLife Stadium in October to beat the Giants. Bus trip down to Baltimore. That's in December. Maybe you want to take me for an early birthday present. Of course, F Dallas week in Dallas, November 10th. Guys, check them out, PhillySportsTrips.com. Go to their website, sign up, and when you do, make sure you mention Edge of Philly Sports and Trending in the AM. We'll get to the other ones in a minute or two. Lots of great comments, a lot of great insight from Martin Frank as well. So there's a lot that we could dive into. I want to go through some of these comments really quickly. I'm just going to go backwards here. So if I miss any, guys, re-comment if you want something addressed. Doesn't want to go down the way he went last season. Absolutely agree with this. I love this. I keep saying it a little differently than this, Duck. I keep saying he wasn't as great as he was in 2022, but he wasn't as bad as he was in 2023. He's somewhere in the middle, and he wants to show that. Yeah, he wants to be relevant again. Absolutely. Maybe he wants another contract after this year. So he's got something to prove. So why not? At first, I thought Bradbury was a zone cornerback thrown into a managed coverage situation. Now I think physically, yeah, I think age has caught up to him for sure. What's this? Don't worry, Dan Marino's coming off the bench this year. What? I don't even know. I missed a lot of comments, so sorry. Sirianni was coaching when you were. Oh man, that's got to be a movie reference somewhere in here. Even Shady sucked at pass protection his rookie year. Yeah, absolutely. So I saw a lot of Will Shipley. Sorry, I transitioned to defense when these Shipley comments started coming in. Shipley doesn't look too much better than Gainwell. Yeah, he's looked good in running and catching the ball, but the blocking assignments are definitely a struggle for Shipley so far. I expect to see a hell of a lot of Shipley tonight or tomorrow night. I expect to see a hell of a lot of Shipley through the 3 preseason games. We'll see how much we see of him in the regular season, though. I still think he's third. I don't think out of all these guys, like Johnny Wilson has a chance to overtake wide receiver 3. I don't think Shipley has any chance of overtaking running back 2 or anything like that. Not yet. Not this early in the season. Can Cal Katera start any other NFL team? I don't know about that, mister. I see flashes of potential with him, but I also see meh from him at times. Who thinks Smith is purposely pulling up lame to try? Nah, I don't think he would do that. I don't think that's a possibility. I mean, maybe, but I doubt it. I do truly doubt that that's the case. Not sure where that is. He said he didn't think so too much. No. I think we will see some 12 formations this year, especially if they're rolling with a combination of Covey and Johnny Wilson and whoever else at wide receiver 3. You could put Brown, Smitty, Goddard, Calcaterra. That's 9 with the offense line 10. And Saquon Barkley out there. I think you'll see that. Maybe not as much as we saw it during the Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert era, but you will see it occasionally, in my humble opinion. Let's see. Yeah, I saw this comment before, K1, and I love it. Love it. Love it. He said, I know what the F I'm doing. Just be honest. Just be out there. Two-Face, he's talking to me like a choir boy, then cuss him like a sound in the silent. Stop. And response by Sirianni Hurts during the press conferences was excellent. They really handled it well. I do, and I still stand by it that he would be fired, Nick Sirianni, if it was bad as the article said. There is. I got to go back and listen to it. Maybe I'll try to find time. I doubt I'll have time today. Very beginning of the interview, Martin Frank really said something about the timing and about the article that really hit something for me. And I want to go back and find it. And when I do, I'll try to clip it out for everybody. Will we be talking about this story? And I saw this, and I wanted to get back to at least this comment. It depends on what we see on Friday night. It depends on if the media keeps pushing the topic. I know for me, we won't be talking about this at all. If maybe a touch, Deebs will be here tomorrow. Maybe I'll get his on-air opinion on it for a minute or two. But we're moving on from this. I'm moving on from this after today. And yes, this was a mistake. This came out totally wrong right there for sure. All right, so we're all caught up on those comments. Let's see what we got now. Phil, reading comments in reverse. Yeah, I'm just trying to catch up. There were certain ones I liked, certain ones I wanted to make sure I saw. But guys, you're watching Trend in the AM right here on Edge of Philly Sports. Hit that like button, that share button, that subscribe and follow button, retweet, wherever you're watching, guys. Hit those buttons, smash them. It's free to support a local content creator. I greatly appreciate it. Travis says they should play the starters for one drive or two. Look, I could toss that up one way or the other, Travis. I get why they don't. I wouldn't mind if they do. I don't think Friday's the day to do it, though, Travis. It is supposed to rain cats and dogs out there. The remnants of that tropical storm will be passing over Philly. I don't want my starters out there on super wet turf or in the rain itself. You always have a risk of getting injured, but in that rain, it just kind of goes up another touch. So I don't want to see it on Friday. 11 likes, that's it. That is not enough. Pickett has to be prepared if runner Hurts miss a few games. He was a starter. Yeah, I think Pickett's going to be your backup. I know there's some people thinking Tanner McKee might win that job, but no, it's going to be Kenny Pickett. Absolutely. I've already placed my bet, 15-1. Jalen Hurts MVP. Jalen Hurts got a chip on his shoulder. Jalen Hurts is ready to go. He's ready to prove the doubters wrong. So is Nick Sirianni. Differently abled Datby. I don't know what that last part is, but cool. I agree with you. Shady McCoy said Super Bowl this year. Well, I guess he's trying to pander to us Eagles fans by saying that. But I agree that there's a very strong chance. I think the 49ers are going to take a step backwards now that they're getting rid of Ayuk. Probably to the Steelers here, maybe today even. And they got Christian McCaffrey hurt for a little bit. The Lions impressed me a little bit, but we'll see. Barkley for MVP. Man, there haven't been many running back MVPs, Stevie. But that would be fun. That would be a real kick in the ass to the Giants if Saquon Barkley comes to the Eagles and he's the first running back since Adrian Peterson. Was he the last guy that was a running back to win MVP? Man, that was a long time ago, too. Vote for Huff, Roddy Little Piglet. Yeah. Bryce Huff is going to play on Friday, and Bryce Huff is going to need to prove himself. There's a lot of guys on Friday that are going to have to prove himself, and we're going to do it tomorrow. We're going to do we'll do the top 10 players we think have to prove themselves on Friday. You know who doesn't have to prove themselves? David Archerry, the Cherry Law Firm. He has already proven to be the absolute best in the state of Pennsylvania. Whether you're looking for a workers' compensation lawyer, motor vehicle accident, you've got a personal injury claim, or you're in a criminal law situation, call the best. Call David Archerry, 610-565-0300, or go to cherryinjurylaw.com, fill out his form. Make sure you mention Edge of Philly. Make sure you mention Trending in the AM when you call him. Hopefully you don't need to call him, but if you do need to call him, call the best. Let him fight for you and get you what you deserve. Again, David Archerry, 610-565-0300. or go to cherryinjurylaw.com. All right, we're into the final 20 minutes of the show here today, guys. Has there been a running back MVP? Adrian Peterson, I believe, was MVP early in his career. I'm almost positive of that. Almost positive. But I don't think there's been many. There's only been, I remember like a week or two ago looking up the MVPs. And I remember only seeing, outside like the 70s and 80s, only like a couple. So how A.J. Brown's yards? I think it's an interesting question. I mean, he's been 2,900 yards over the last 2 years. I do think Saquon Barkley's involvement in this offense is going to hit A.J. Brown, Smitty, and Goddard a touch. I really do. But, I mean, I think it's going to hit Kenny Gainwell more than anybody. DeAndre Swift had a little over 1,000 yards last year rushing, plus a couple hundred receiving. I expect Saquon to have 1,500 to 1,800 all-purpose yards. So that's going to have to come from somebody's numbers and A.J. Brown. But A.J. Brown's still going to have 1,300 yards receiving, without a doubt, in my opinion. Just wondering, is Hassan Reddick going to play for the Jets this preseason? For the Jets in the preseason, no. The question is, will Hassan Reddick play for the Jets, period? That should be the question, Mitchie Poo. And that I don't know the answer to. Yeah, do you like that smooth little segue there, Travis? I think I nailed that segue pretty well there. Game is on Cozy TV because the Olympics are on NBC 10 NFL Network. Royal plea that I did not know that. I do know I've got Cozy TV somewhere on my YouTube TV thing. I think I do. I hope I do. If not, I'm going to be pissed if I can't watch the game on Friday night. But good bit of information there from you, Barbara. I appreciate that. I have to figure out where Cozy TV is on the YouTube TV guide. Beast Mode? I don't think he did. I do not think Marshawn Lynch won a MVP. 2012. That feels like so long ago, but it was not that long ago. Thanks for getting that. I knew he won it. I just didn't know what year he won it in. I'm surprised I haven't made a joke about that yet myself, Mr. The depth chart, Huff. Yeah, I've had the depth chart, the ESPN depth chart up on a side tab for the last 2 weeks. It hasn't changed. Now the depth chart I shared yesterday or 2 days ago from Zach Berman with the reporters got of the current unofficial depth chart going into the preseason game also has it like this. Bryce Huff has not had a great camp. Bryce Huff has to impress Vic Fangio a little bit more. Alex Hunt is impressing. Nolan Smith is impressing. Huff will start week 1 because he was given a $51 million contract. For every minute, every day, every week, every game, the amount of snaps Huff is going to get over Smith and Hunt is continuing to come down unless he goes out and, performs better. Carter Davis Williams, to me, do not need to play on Friday night. They just don't, in my opinion. I do not think James Bradbury would get traded. I think James Bradbury is making the team. I made a joke that he was in the very beginning of the offseason. I stand by it. James Bradbury will make this Eagles roster. Or unless he was just traded just now. Unless there's breaking news that he was traded just now. I'll reset my Twitter feed and see. Since you put it up there twice, maybe there's breaking news, but I doubt it. Hold on. Yeah, I don't see anything here on Twitter saying it's happened or anything like that, but could be wrong. I don't think he will though, personally. If he hasn't just been breaking traded, I don't think he is getting traded in my opinion. I feel like running back is due for an MVP. McCaffrey is going to take a step back this season. Saquon is going to be able to showcase all his skills. MVP numbers. Yeah, I'm surprised CMC hasn't won an MVP. CMC is a pretty damn good player. It's just the MVP is basically the best quarterback award. It's basically what it is. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I could see it. I doubt it'll happen, but I could see Saquon getting it, Steve. There's always a chance of it happening. But again, the last running back was 2012. That's 11 years ago. It's such a rare opportunity for that to happen. And Chris McCaffrey had an amazing season last year, and I don't know where he finished in the voting, probably second or third. But yeah. What's up, Eric? Late to the program, but you're here just in time. Opportunity for Bradbury to show he doesn't belong with the twos. Like I actually think James Bradbury not only is making this team right now with the depth issues at safety, he's probably the third best safety on this team. Crazy to say it, but he probably is. Now, will he tackle? That's a big question mark. He's not known as the best tackler. You kind of got to tackle as a safety. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Honestly, differently, or we'll just call you Dad, D-A-D. Honestly, Dad, no clue. And honestly, I don't care about the score on Friday night. Preseason games don't matter if you win or lose. Preseason doesn't matter how many points you score. Preseason matters about seeing them hit another team for the first time. Preseason is to see the young kids step up, and the preseason is for camp battles like linebacker, like cornerback, like wide receiver 3 to battle it out and see who impresses the most. That is what the preseason is. That's what preseason game 1 is. So I'm not really worried about the score, so to say. I kind of feel this way too as well, Barbara. CMC had an amazing season last year and pretty much helped carry that 49ers team. How good is Gainwell? He ran between the best O-line. Yeah, Gainwell's okay. He's blah. Yeah. To me. Sidney Brown's a sleeper. Can you imagine they have Maddox a starter over Quinion and Maddox ain't starting. I was kind of impressed or excited to hear Martin Frank say that he believes that by week 5 or 6 that Sidney Brown might be back. And isn't the bye week 4 or 5? Bye week 5. So maybe by Cleveland, Sidney Brown's back. I wasn't expecting Sidney Brown back that quickly personally. I see your next comment, Travis, and I'm laughing already. But yeah, I kind of like to see that. Yeah, that's right. I called him Dad, not Daddy. I just don't know how to say the last part of his name, so we're just gonna call him Daddy. Maybe this is the year the voters get stale of Mahomes and the court. Well, I hope Jalen Hurts wins it because I got a nice little bet on 15-1 of Jalen Hurts in the MVP, Steve. Not as good as my 30-1 on Brian Harmon to win the Wyndham this week, Steve. Which if it even plays the Wyndham, I can't believe the PJ didn't just move the tournament. I know it's kind of hard to do, but I don't know how they're going to get this week's tournament in. Gainwell is terrible. Gainwell's okay. How about that? I don't know if he's terrible, Anthony. I don't think he's good. My shift changed back to second shift. Oh, we're going to see less of you or more of you. I don't know. But you know who wants to see more of you? PJ down at Dolan's Bar. This weekend is coming up. You want a place to watch the game Friday night? Go to Dolan's Bar in Ridley Park, Delaware County for 65 plus years. They've been the quintessential Irish American dive bar in Delaware County. Great food, great times. Memorabilia gives away sometimes. Sometimes Philly sports legends walk in the door because that's what happens when you've been around for 65 years. Check them out, 24 East Sellers Avenue, Ridley Park. Go to dolansbar.com, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Let them know when you go in. Tell PJ, yo, EOP, Train the AM was hyping you up. Let them know that. Guys, that's the place to go for a game. I'm going to go to a game. Even though it's an hour and change from where I'm at now, I'm going to go to a game there at some point this year. Are you on the Simmons train for safety? No. I mean, I've brought it up a few times today. I brought it up a few times yesterday. He went to the Saints for a workout, and I got 2 thought processes on Simmons. One, okay, if Simmons was important and needed, Simmons would be here already. Okay? That's one. Actually, I got 3 things on Simmons. 1, if he was important enough, he'd be here already. 2, if he was as good as people think he is, why has he got to try out for the Saints? The good free agents don't try out. They have contract negotiations and they sign and they go take their physical. That's it. Simmons had to go to Saints camp and try out like a punter trying to fill in for an injured punter in week 6 of the season. He's not an undrafted free agent. He's not a nobody from the UFL. Simmons is supposed to be great, but he's still got to try out. So that's 2. Part 3. Can't say the name, but somebody told me in a private message, somebody I do know, somebody that's been on this show, somebody that respect, that said that there's a little rumbling growing that Justin Simmons and Vic Fangio actually do not get along and do not see eye to eye. I don't normally have sources. A source, I don't like to call them sources, someone I respect sent me a message saying that they couldn't tell their source, but they were told by someone inside that Justin Simmons and Vic Fangio do not like each other. Just throwing that out there. So Simmons, to me, with the fact that Sidney Brown's hurt, Bradbury's being forced to turn into a safety, Avonte Maddox is moving out of cornerback slot to safety. With as weak as the safety position is, Justin Simmons would already be here if it was that bad, my opinion. How many holes do they get in this weekend with it being last event before? I hate it. I hate it, Steve. They might only get 36, 54 holes in. They should just turn into a no-cut event at this point. They should also they should have considered moving it somewhere else. They could have moved it to where they held 2 weeks ago. They could have moved it somewhere else. Maybe not with the fans and all the media and stuff, but they could have figured out a way to move the event. They could have. I think it sucks. I think it's going to affect a lot of players' chances at making the playoffs. And I wanted to talk about Grayson Murray. We didn't get to do golf, but Grayson Murray in the FedEx rankings, a little thing there, but that's a story for a Fairway to Heaven episode, not Treading the AM. Did it again. What, the smooth segue? Yeah, I was smooth. Some smooth segues today for sure. I'll be here just tardy. Just tardy. We don't accept lateness in this family here. If I was a blonde, call me dumb, yeah. I didn't say I was going to a game. I said I was going to go to Dolan's Bar to watch a game. Maybe. I prefer to watch on my couch with a $12, case of beer. Well, whatever. No, you're not going to get a case for $12 anymore. Can't believe y'all still want another Simmons drama. Yeah. Not just because of Ben Simmons, but because Justin Simmons supposedly doesn't get along with Vic Fangio. And again, Justin Simmons, if he was so good, why did Bryce Huff have to try out when we signed him? No. Rookies entering the draft, undrafted rookies, XFLers, that's who tries out. Real free agents negotiate through their agent, get a contract offer, pass a physical, and are signed. Simmons has got to try. Something about the way that was phrased, and maybe I'm overblowing that, or over-exaggerating a little, but that's just the way I read it. He had to have a tryout. Tells me maybe Justin Simmons ain't anything special, in my opinion. That's it. That's the end of my espresso for the day. Still can't figure out this espresso machine. It leaks too much. Sometimes it doesn't make good cups. I think I've butchered the espresso machine pretty quickly here in this household. All right, so we're in the final five here. Obviously, Deebs will be here tomorrow. We're going to talk all the different players, who we expect to see, battles that we help to learn more about on Friday night. Basically, be previewing the game. We won't give a score prediction because who cares? And I'm a degenerate gambler, and I ain't even gambling on a preseason game. Just sounds stupid in my opinion. But we'll talk about it. Who should play? Who shouldn't play? We didn't really get to talk about it much today. But obviously, Jalen Hurts broke the record. The made-up camp record, the fake camp record, whatever you want to call it. How many passes he's now thrown without an interception in training camp. And everybody's crushing Elliott Shore Park for tracking the passing stats and tracking this record for the last 5-10 years that he's been doing it. But, man, let me tell you something. For everybody that is bashing him for talking about the fact that Jalen Hurts still hasn't thrown an interception in camp, they're the same people that would be bashing Jalen Hurts if the reports coming out of camp were that Jalen Hurts was throwing interceptions. Jalen Hurts threw 3 interceptions in practice. We've got a quarterback problem. So I'm here to say one more time, Jalen Hurts' training camp stats do actually matter for confidence, for the fans, for everybody, for my sanity not to have to defend Jalen Hurts on a daily basis. Who do you want to start? Who do I think will, like in the regular season? Right now, I like what Martin Frank said. It's going to be Slay, Isaiah Rodgers, and Quinion Mitchell. You're starting 3 cornerbacks. If Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's healthy, he and Reed Blankenship will start. Bond will be starting linebacker. I don't think there's any battle there. I think Becton will win the battle at right guard. I'd still like to see Tyler Steen win that job. I'm still not so. Becton is ahead of Steen. Steen came into camp ahead of Becton. Becton has overtaken Steen. I'd still like to see Steen win that battle. I really would. I really think it would be good to see the young kids step up and re-grab that job from him. They're the main battles to me. Johnny Wilson, Paris Campbell, whoever's the third wide receiver. I think I believe Nick Sirianni's saying they're going to rotate the third wide receiver based off of matchups and situations. So we'll see. I do have a college degree. I can operate it, but it's leaking constantly. And sometimes it doesn't froth the milk properly. And I clean it, and it still leaks. It comes out the arm, like the little handle thing you put the coffee in and you lock it in place, and it drips down the arm. And I don't know why. No matter how many times I clean it keeps doing it. Yeah. I hate. I was late to vet. Yes, me too. The only way to get paid doing this job now. Sounds like Barkley is really giving Hurts time in the pocket for Hurts to get that record. Barkley for MVP. Anything to say? No, don't you want me to win, Steve? Come on. Barkley, I think I remember looking at Barkley and thinking about throwing a bet on him. I want to say it was 35 or 45 to 1 to win the MVP, Steve. What is my degree in? Well, my good friend Mark Orsini would tell me my degree is in baking muffins because he was a fancy engineer. Brian was a fancy lawyer and writer. And me, I was just a hotel restaurant manager, management degree. Hospitality management is, I think, what the title actually is. But basically, my friends used to just tell me I got a degree. I went to college to learn how to bake muffins. I graduated from Widener. I was originally at Drexel for a little while. I actually was a journalist major my freshman year of college. Then life happened. I dropped out for a little while, went back, got my hospitality management degree from Widener. That's just what it is. An espresso froth. I have an espresso. Isn't espresso things like kind of similar to like a Keurig thingy? I have one of those, I think, in my garage somewhere. I didn't know it did a frothing. Yeah, the stupid steam one that sticks out the side of the espresso machine. I don't know. Look, it's a pain. I could. I've only worked in a hotel for like 6 months in a restaurant and a hotel, and that was it. I don't really have much hotel experience, mostly restaurant, contract food services, and cruise ships. That's where my experience is. Jalen Carter should have been on NFL Top 100. Fact that rookie corner. I didn't really get into the Top 100. I didn't really look at it too deeply, so I don't even know. I do know Jalen Hurts was 15th on that list, though. It's a separate fraud. Oh, okay, gotcha. But even the coffee, sometimes the espresso that comes out, has a little froth in it, and it doesn't. So I don't know what's going on. We actually tried to open up the manual this morning and start reading it a little bit. And I knew I was cleaning it, but maybe I wasn't cleaning it right all the time. We'll figure it out. I still love it. I'm a college dropout. I'm confident that I could figure out how to use an espresso machine. Well, come over to my house. I'm in Coatesville, mister. Come on over. So I know how to use it. I don't know how to keep it clean so it doesn't leak. Because what I thought I was doing to clean it was obviously not working. That's it. And again, here we go. Once at least a show. Some idiot troll bot account on TikTok or Twitch trying to get me to click a link to increase my views. Anybody that's dumb enough to click those Twitch links, you're dumb. Devin White will thrive. I can feel he's back to form. Look, I have high hopes for Devin White. Not going to shy away from that. We'll talk about Devin White a little bit more tomorrow with Deebs. Very, very high on Devin White this year. I agree. Remember, I've said this before on the show, Travis. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you're not. People talk about Devin White being washed like he's some 33-year-old linebacker that's been in the NFL for 11 seasons. Devin White's only 26 years old. Devin White's still not even in his prime as an athlete yet. I think in this system with this team, with a great front, if our secondary can perform well, I think Devin White's going to impress a lot of people this year. I hope he will. Absolutely. If Devin White's as good as he was 2 years ago when he was an all-pro Duck, I thought it was 3 years, but if it was 2 years ago, whatever. If Devin White can be as good as he was 2 years ago, we might have a top 7 defense in the NFL, top 5 defense in the NFL. There's a legit chance of that. people got to remember, I haven't done the write down research on this yet, but I have read it before. I've gone to the Football Pro Reference page on it. Vic Fangio either gets a top 7 defense every year or a bottom 7 defense. Very rarely does have like that 15th ranked defense. It's always elite or meh. I think we're closer to being elite than meh. So we'll see. I do too, but I changed my screen comment today. My screen name thingy today. We really didn't talk about Matt Strom for president much today. Guys, with that being said, got to wrap it up. We'll be back tomorrow. Deebs, trending in the AM right here on Edge of Philly Sports. Like, share, subscribe, follow all platforms. Drop those comments even if it's on Replay Gang. I check the Replay Gang, guys. Ring that bell. Go Birds. Thank you, Martin Frank. Bubbles up to you.